Good afternoon, Starbounders. My name is Deja Vu Prone, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about using a controller like an Xbox pad or a PlayStation 3 controller for Starbound. Now, I personally use Xpadder, and this is what I'm going to be demonstrating, in this video. So you can get this for $10 or an older version apparently for free. I do not know where that is, but I can link the Xpadder website in the video description below. Alright, so let's get started. Now, as you can see, I have a controller set up and as well as a profile. Now I will run down what everything here means in a second. And let's start with the controller. Now for this is pretty self-explanatory. You just enable everything and then you make the various motions to make sure it detects everything properly until you get to here. Now what this is basically is you just press every button that exists on your gamepad, including the start, select, the bumpers, and the buttons on the analog sticks, because those will all be registered as separate mappable buttons and they're all kind of put into this bar here. Whoops, didn't mean to move that. Yeah, get back down. Okay, and last but not least, you have your triggers. Again, enable it, make sure to press them and it's all detected and you're good to go. Now let's start down here with the two sticks in the D-pad. Now this is my left stick, and as you can see, that's WASD, and hopefully Xpadder already has a preset for that, so that's pretty simple to set up. Now for this is the D-pad, and I just set up for the various windows, as you can see, inventory, crafting, log, journal. And to set these, you just click on them and it gives you a virtual keyboard and you just set whatever you feel like setting. Now this is however, you can set it differently if you want. This is just a guide. Now this is probably where the biggest difficulty is, setting that properly, and this is your right analog stick, which I use as the mouse. Now you click on this little wrench, you go make sure it's set to mouse normal, set that to standard, no reason to have any other way, just I never found that it affects it properly. Now you click mouse settings and you once again have it normal. You can invert it if that floats your boat. Personally, that just messes with my head, so yeah, normal. Now down here, mode, this is probably what affects it the most. Some people talked about using spring. Now what that does is if you move the mouse cursor using the joypad a certain distance from the center, it springs it back. But all I noticed that did for me was cause really jerky motion, and I couldn't get any precision at all. So I didn't really care for that too much. What I use is look camera, which might sound counterintuitive, but I personally find that works the best. Now this is basically your sensitivity, and I have it set pretty low at 34. This is because I was trying to get the balance between precision for stuff like mining and farming and moving inventory and the reaction time of combat. Now I went more heavier to precision because, well, let's be honest, there's a lot of that in Starbound, and I find it works just fine for combat as well. Alright, so now that's out of the way. You want to go back here and go to settings up here. This is your actual stick settings. Stick 1, that's your WASD. You can leave at defaults, don't even worry about it. This, on the other hand, you want to set this dead zone down to about 25. If you go lower, I'll show you what happens if you set this down too much. See, as you can see, it's moving. I'm not actually moving it. It's because The joystick doesn't sit natively at center, as you can see. Kind of sits a little bit off center. So it'll cause your mouse to just kind of move around on its own, and that's no fun for anybody. So back up to 25 you go. Not that 25% dead zone, that gives you the precision and responsiveness, but you won't have your mouse moving on its own if the joystick just happens to sit outside the dead zone natively, which it will. So there you go, keep that and everything else as is, and you're good to go. Now, buttons. How do I have this set up? Well, as you can see, I'm moving this actually with the joystick. Now, triggers. I have triggers. The right trigger says the left mouse button. Left trigger says the right mouse button. And I have this specifically just because I find it more comfortable that way, even though it seems counterintuitive. It works for me. Now, bumpers. I have set as mouse wheel up, mouse wheel down. What this lets me do is it lets me scroll between the items on my hotbar in the game fairly effectively. I mean, all you have to do is keep clicking them and you'll get to where you want for quite quickly. It's not quite as fast as, say, hitting a number on the keyboard, but it's pretty much the next best thing. Beyond that, we have the face buttons. Now, I will give you a rundown one by one of what I've set these to do. Now, A, as you can see, is spacebar, so that's your jump. B is X, so that's to unequip what you have and basically equip what you have set as your default right and left-handed. I have it set as a weapon to let me respond to attackers quickly if I'm mining or farming or what have you. You can set this how you want. This is just a guide to give you an idea of how to set this all up. Now, X is your E/use key. Y is, of course, your tech ability, so that's F. Then you have back and start. Back is Z, so that's basically to switch between right and left hands. It's a bit of a freebie control, so you can go ahead and set that to what you want. I don't have a keybound for dropping things because I just don't play multiplayer, so I don't have a reason to really drop things very often. So if you do play multiplayer, that might be another alternative between using the Z for back, is maybe set that to Q, which is your drop command. Start is of course escape. That's to get to your options, pretty self-explanatory. Now, last but not least, you have two buttons on your joysticks, and that's I have set to Alt on the right, which is again is another freebie because Alt doesn't really do much for you, except just tells you what you can interact with, which you can usually figure out on your own. So that could be another one you could set for, say, Q to drop things, and other one I have to left shift. So if I hold this down and click on something in the game, that lets me move stacks inventory between containers quite quickly and efficiently. So I find overall this is a good setup for playing a game with, and I will now show you how this actually works in game. Let me just get Starbound back in full screen because it likes to go into windowed for whatever reason. Alrighty, so here we are. As people will no doubt tell, I've run a number of mods. My favorite probably is the Metroid one because I'm a big Metroid fan, so you'll see that a character is Samus Aran, and I am using the Metroid mod. So here we are. I am using entirely the controller for this, and as you can see, is it super quick? No, but it's fairly responsive, and it'll do what you need it to do. So let's go down to the planet, and let's shoot some things up. So as you can see, I can be quite accurate with this. Playing with a controller has not really killed me any more than the mouse and keyboard did. And yes, I died plenty with the mouse and keyboard, but that's probably just because I'm bad at the game. So if you don't die very often, well, you probably shouldn't die very often using controller either. But this really isn't meant to be a superior way to play the game. It's just an alternative. For me personally, I get fatigued when I have to use a mouse for long periods of time. My wrist starts getting sore. It kind of sucks. This is an alternative that kind of gets around that fatigue problem for me personally. Not to mention, it gives me that old school platformer vibe. So, you know, I like it because it feels like playing platformers on the good old SNES days. The other thing I wanted to show you was maybe a little bit of farming and placing our objects. Once I deal with these fine gentlemen here. Alright, so placing objects. So let's place a campfire here. As you can see, I'm scrolling between my hotbar using the bumpers, works pretty well. Placing items, not too shabby. Let's get my hoe. Use a hoe. Oh, can't. I'm not sure if I can actually tell. And this is what I get for doing this on. Yeah, this is what I get for doing this on a desert planet. Well, I guess I can't show you farming, but I think you get the general idea. So yeah, as they say is that. I find this works quite well. Mining also is quite intuitive. I have no complaints there. I actually find it quite satisfying. So you can see it's just as good using a pick, and it gives you a pretty visceral feel as well, so that's always a bonus. But again, this was never meant to be a better way to play, just an alternative way to play. So I hope if you're looking into using controller for Starbound, this helps. It's definitely playable. It may not be quite as good as using a mouse and keyboard, but it definitely feels like the next best thing, and it's certainly quite serviceable. As a last note, if you have a better setup than this, by all means, please put in the description below this video. I am not going to pretend that this is the end all be all of setups. This is just how I have things set up, and it works just fine for me. So if you have another way to set up, do so, and please share with the world. That's what makes YouTube great. Alright, thanks guys, and have a great one.